They don't look too happy, do they? Anyway, protests erupting in Pakistan after President Trump tweets that the U.S. is going to withhold hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to Pakistan, saying that we're pouring good money after bad, and it stops with him. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul actually just got off the phone with President Trump. Of course, the senator is a member of that key Foreign Relations Committee. Of course, he wields tremendous influence on Capitol Hill. Senator, good to see you.
Good to see you, Neil. Thanks for having me.
This issue and this money, why now, Senator? You just got off the phone with the president. Why now?
You know, I think most Americans would support the president on this. I mean, we don't like to see our money going to countries that burn our flag. In Pakistan, they incarcerate Christians. There's a Christian Asia Bibi. He's been on death row for 5 years. They put Dr. Shakil Afridi in jail for 33 years. He's the guy that helped us get bin Laden. They seemed to look the other way when bin Laden was there for over a decade. So, yeah, I think Americans agree with the president. We ought to quit sending good money after bad. And what I discussed with the president is I have an idea for using some of that money here at home. We got bridges, we've got roads that need repair. Why don't we keep that money at home and let's put it into rebuilding our infrastructure here at home?
Do you know, well, first of all, on that, what did he say to that idea?
Well, I don't like to characterize what he tells me personally, but I can tell you that he's talked a lot about infrastructure, and he also has talked a lot about not liking money going to Pakistan. So I think he'd probably be receptive to it. And I did tell him we'd introduce it next week. And so we'll see. We'll see what the administration says. But I think it's very, very popular with the people. But it's one of those things that if you walk around Washington and talk to people, nobody in Washington is for keeping any of that money at home. They would send more money than you can imagine everywhere in the world, but they never will consider keeping any of it at home. But President Trump has said repeatedly during his campaign, throughout his presidency, that we need to spend that money here at home. And I'm going to put legislation out there, and let's see if we can get Congress to vote on spending some of that money here. You
know, when you were running for president, to say nothing of your senatorial career, you also had serious questions about the billions we give abroad and to get little of it back, certainly even in respect, let alone, thanks. Do we have to do a wholesale sort of step back from foreign aid in general, that Pakistan might be the tipping point?
Yeah, I think at the very least, if you're giving people money, they ought to be your friend, and they ought to behave, and they ought to be your ally. There are some people who question whether Pakistani intelligence actually cooperates with a Haqqani network that actually kills our soldiers across the border in Afghanistan. So, yeah, I think there ought to be conditions to it. We also shouldn't give money to countries, one, that have mass protests burning our flag, and where the government itself condones putting Christians in jail for gossip. Basically, someone said that this woman said something bad about Islam, and she denies it, and she happens to be a Christian, and they've had her in jail now for 8 years. Her name's Asia Bibi. There's no reason in the world we should give them one penny when they put Christians in jail or when they put people in jail that helped us to get bin Laden. That makes me think that they really don't care about being our ally.
I'd like to switch gears, Senator, if you don't mind, on Orrin Hatch indicating that he's stepping down. Talk is that Mitt Romney, the former presidential candidate, might run for that seat. What do you think?
Well, you know, I've gotten to know Senator Hatch over the past 6 years or so, and I'd say there's probably not a finer gentleman in the Senate. Doesn't mean we always agree, but I tell you what, I've never had a disagreeable word with him. He is really one of the very fine gentlemen and well-intentioned and good-meaning people that we have in our Congress. You know, a lot of times people want to badmouth who their elected officials are. He's one of the guys that you'd be hard-pressed to try to say a mean word about him because he's such a nice guy.
What about Mitt Romney if he gets that?
You know, I don't know who will run. I've met Mitt Romney before. I don't know whether in Utah they'll hold it against him that he, ran for, was the governor of another state, across the country. A lot of those things would have to be decided over time. There's a great deal of allegiance to religion in Utah, maybe more so than regionality, whether you're from Massachusetts or not. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but it's a very competitive Republican state, so I would assume there'll be several people joining the fray, would be my guess.
So even if Mitt Romney were to run, you wouldn't be surprised if others decided to challenge him?
No, and in fact, my good friend Mike Lee went up and took on a sitting senator out there, and a lot of times their primary is actually a convention where only a couple of thousand people vote, and so a lot of times conservatives have a bigger impact in Utah than many places because the conservative activists are the ones a lot of times that show up for their conventions.
Do you think Mitt Romney is a conservative?
Well, I think that, there were people who said that, Obamacare was based on Romney Care in Massachusetts. It's very expensive and a government-directed health care sort of plan that most conservatives don't agree with. So I think that would have to be sorted out by those in Utah, whether he's conservative or not. I would say some aspects, particularly of Romney Care, are really aspects of big government health care that might not, fit real well with conservatives in Utah. We'll see.
My immediate thought was how anyone could build a bridge after the acrimonious relationship, of course, the former governor and presidential candidate had with President Trump. You guys, that is you and President Trump, also had an acrimonious relationship. You have a very good working relationship now. What do you think?
I think that, yeah, perhaps. I don't know about their personal relationship. I can comment on mine. Yes, we fought tooth and nail in the presidential primary. We may have both said some things that we'd just soon forget now. But, there are a lot of things that I agree with President Trump on very strongly. Sending money to Pakistan, that being a mistake, that the Iraq war was a mistake. And so, really, President Trump comes from a wing of the party that really strongly represents a lot of the things that I've said. And so it's been easy for me, I think, to get a good relationship with him. Over time, because there's a lot of things we agree with.
Right. Marco Rubio was talking over the weekend, Senator, about the tax cut package that Republicans crafted and, mused that maybe it was a little bit too generous to corporations. What do you think?
I think the thing is people get confused about tax cuts. So let's say you pay $1,000 in taxes and we give you a 99% cut. So you get a $990 tax cut. But let's say you pay $1 million in taxes and you get a 1% cut, and it's a $10,000 tax cut. We all go crazy saying, oh, the guy who paid $1 million or the corporation paid $1 million is getting $10,000 and the poor person's only getting $990. But they got a 99% tax cut. So a lot of this stuff is demagoguery. And I would say, and I'm not saying that with regard to Marco's comments because I haven't heard them, but I am saying with regard to the idea that the rich got too much and the poor didn't get enough, this tax cut is heavily weighted towards the middle class and the working class. Every working person in the country in February is going to see more money in their check. And I think that's what we should be doing, is leaving more money in the hands of those who work hard for it. And I think there was a lot of corporate tax cut here. I would like to see more on the individual side, but I don't want to see less on the corporate side. I think we did a good job on the corporate side. If we get economic growth, which many of us think we will, I'd like to come back in a year and do more on the individual side, particularly at the top 1% and top 5%, because they pay most of the taxes.
Senator, how are you feeling?
Much better. It's been a rough couple of months, and, had I been any less good shape, I think I had a really tough time. And even as it was, I had a great deal of difficulty for the first probably month and a half, but now I'm trying to get back to normal.
Well, that's good to hear. Senator, thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Neil.